So it's happened to me a couple of times now, where someone that's seen my content on YouTube or read some of my work on my website has followed my trading advice, but unfortunately not been very successful.
Party, I listed a whole bunch of alchemy writs for 40k each, just like you said in your video, and none of them sold.
Oh, that's a bummer. I know that they can usually sell for that much during XP events because of their crazy high demand. Where is your trader located?
Murkmire.
Yeah, that might be why. Murkmire isn't a really popular place.
In the Outlaws' Refuge.
What?
In the Outlaws' Refuge of Murkmire.
Oh, well, yeah, that's probably why. Not a lot of people naturally find themselves in the Little Moth Market, let alone the
Party, you were wrong. You lied to me. Unsubscribing, disliking your video, and reporting you to Zoss. Enjoy your ban.
Reporting... Okay, don't you think that's a little...
Goodbye, you basement YouTuber. Oh, and by the way, it's pronounced bugloss. Come on, everyone knows that.
Okay, so maybe those kinds of interactions don't end up being quite like that. In fact, those of you that have reached out to talk about sweaty trading tips have always been super nice. The only accurate part of that skit, with Academy Award-winning voice acting, was the fact that sometimes people follow trading tips that don't quite resonate with the kind of trading guild that they're in, which begs the question, well then, what should I be looking for in a trading guild? Is the moral of the story to just join an elite guild in the most popular location to guarantee sales? No, actually, that's not exactly true either. There are pros and cons to being in all different kinds of guilds. This video is going to briefly go over all of the most important things to look out for when looking to join a trading guild, as well as the desirable and less desirable aspects of these kinds of guilds. Hopefully this will help you understand what kind of trading guild will work the best for you, and if you're already in a trading guild or have a guild trader, I hope that this can help you understand how to make the most out of it by better understanding your guild's sales potential. The 4 main things to consider when it comes to finding and sticking with a trading guild that will suit your playstyle are the following, and I'll elaborate on each of these concepts later in the video. You'll want to consider where the guild trader for this guild is located and understand the kinds of items that sell best in this zone. You'll want to get to know the community of the guild and see if they pass your vibe check. You'll want to know what the sales minimums and dues are for the guild and whether or not you find them reasonable and whether or not you will be able to actually meet them. Lastly, it's also fairly important to know about the guild's history and reliability. If you're scratching your head over this point, I promise I'll elaborate on it later. Understanding your market is crucial when it comes to being successful in a trading guild. Ideally, you'll want to be in a guild that has a guild trader in a location that suits your playstyle and resonates with the kinds of items that you receive as a result of playing the game the way you prefer. For example, hub cities like Mournhold and Rawcaw get the most traffic in the entire game, and some of the hottest selling items in these locations are materials, especially upgrade materials. However, something to keep in mind is that because these cities host some of the most elite trading guilds, you have to understand that you're going to be dealing with a lot of competition from within this zone, and even from within your own guild trader. While materials may be hot sellers in these zones, you'll often find that people are very quick to undercut in these guilds to try to guarantee a faster sale. As a result of all of this undercutting, you'll find that you may potentially have to list your items for relatively lower than you'd like, or risk having your listing get lost in a sea of material listings. Whereas in less popular hub cities like Vivec or Wayrest, because there is less competition and likewise less undercutting, you can get away with pricing your materials at a higher value than you'd be able to in the aforementioned 2 cities. Although it's important to keep in mind that traffic is generally lower in these areas. The good thing about Mournhold and Rawcaw is that even if you do get viciously undercut by guildies, your materials will probably still sell, it'll just take a little longer if you're okay with that. Whereas in other locations, you may find that you'll be able to get a quicker sale and earn more profit while doing so if there just isn't any competition. It's for this reason that I'd recommend the quote-unquote best trading locations to players that spend a considerable amount of time actively farming items to sell, or if you're an avid flipper. You'll have to learn to be able to keep up with the competitive price slashing, or be okay with waiting a little while to get a sale. So to summarize everything, these major trading cities have a reputation for hosting some of the most serious trading guilds, so you can expect that the kind of clientele that shop in these areas are looking to buy plenty of expensive items, and in bulk when applicable. If you're a bulk material seller, trading guilds in this location will be ideal for you. If you're also quick to attain new items as they get added to the game, like say a new motif style, then these zones are also ideal for you, as buyers will flock to these areas to search for the new items, before sites like TTC have a chance to index them and direct buyers to any specific trader. Just remember, you'll be dealing with a lot of undercutting, which may influence your listing prices. But is it worth it because of how heavy the traffic is in these zones? That'll ultimately be up to you to decide. Cities that are popular for doing daily writs are also great for selling crafting materials. If Rawka and Mournhold intimidate you and you're looking for a place with less expensive dues and less competition, I'd recommend writ cities like Vivec, Somerset, and Rimmen. Trading guilds that are located in cities with an undaunted enclave tend to be able to sell PvE consumables very reliably, and at prices that are higher than market value. PvEers that are doing their pledges and quickly looking to top up their supply of potions and food, or grab a gold glyph to change an enchant on their weapon, are very likely going to do so from within the same zone for the sake of convenience. Craiglorn also fits into this category of zones because of all of the pugs that hang out there and wait for the chance to X up for a vet trial only to do 5k DPS. Hey, they need potions too. Speaking of convenience, if your trader's located in an area that's not so convenient, like a city where no one hangs out at much, like say Shornhelm, no offense to any Shornhelm stands, it's just not the place to be, you feel? It looks kinda creepy. But yeah, you're gonna have to price your wares for values that are below the going market price. You have to entice people to go out of their way to travel to your trader, otherwise they'll just stick to buying their wares in convenient locations. This is especially true if your trader's out in the middle of nowhere and not at least in a city next to other traders, and even more so if buyers have to go through another load screen to access your trader, like if it's in an outlaw's refuge. If you just want to get rid of items and don't care much about whether or not you're actually getting paid market value for them, these zones may vibe with you the most, especially because their weekly dues tend to be low, and oftentimes guilds that have traders in these less ideal spots aren't primarily trading guilds to begin with, but rather social, raiding, or PvP ones. The culture of a trading guild is very important from a sales perspective as well as a social one. The Mournhold trading guild that I'm in, for example, is arguably the best trading guild in PCNA in light of their weekly sales. They recently made 1 billion gold in sales in 5 days. That's pretty epic. But something that I'm constantly having to be wary of in this top tier guild is undercutting, which is not so epic. In this guild, it's completely normal and a very common occurrence to undercut guildies by rather hefty amounts, whereas I do not see this behavior so much in my other guilds. So if a new motif style drops, like say the recent Wayward Guardian style, I actually find that I sell my Wayward Guardian motifs for way more in my Vivec City and Stormhaven guilds, simply because there are not a lot of people that will be undercutting me by a lot of gold, and there's just not a lot of competition from within those zones anyways. You are more likely going to run into competition in competitive trading guilds, that's to be expected, so it's up to you to decide how you'd like to handle that. All this to say, I'd be mindful of the competitive culture that may be present in your trading guild. It could vibe with you, it could not. Lots of trading guilds also have giveaways. While my Mournhold guild may be brutal with their undercutting, they do have charitable events. Auctions can get pretty hype. Guildies throw in all sorts of items into an auction lot to encourage higher bids and likewise help support the trader. The guild master and higher ranking goons in the guild host a giveaway a couple times a week where valuable items are given out to the first person that responds with the correct number in guild chat. Because of how these events are structured, everyone has a chance to get a prize. It's really neat. My other guilds have events such as trivia or seasonal events like an Easter egg hunt or a costume contest. Oftentimes, the winners of these events receive valuable items as well. In my Vardenfell guild, the top 50 contributors receive a small thank you gift in the mail every week. They also host a farming party event where participants spend an hour farming materials to donate to the guild to count as part of their dues, and the participant that farms the most gets a prize, usually a crown crate. Another prize often goes out to a random participant as well. It's nice to give to a guild and to have the guild give back. If you're finding that you're only giving to your guild, perhaps even giving a lot to your guild, and you don't have much to show for it, either in experiences, earnings, or rewards, it may be worth considering joining a guild that can actually help you out in those departments. So keep an eye out for those things when applying for trading guilds. On the topic of being helped out, the last point on guild culture that I want to mention is that it's important to find yourself a guild that has a welcoming and helpful community. I've pointed out quite a few drawbacks from being in an elite trading guild so far, but the ones I'm in have very resourceful and helpful people. If you need something crafted, or need a price check, or have a question about anything gold related, there are a lot of people that are there and willing to help you. I think this should be a gold standard for all good trading guilds. I'm not going to name and shame, but I just have to tell you guys about this situation. It just fits in perfectly with what I'm trying to say here. My friend is in this one guild that insists on identifying itself as a trading guild. They demand pretty noteworthy dues. I'd say dues that are comparable with what you'd expect in Vivec City. In fact, their dues are higher than my Vivec City trading guild. Yet this very same guild rarely ever manages to snag a guild trader. And when they do, it's in a spot that's really not ideal, like Kvatch or an Outlaw's Refuge. Their dues are ridiculous given the fact that they barely even have a means to trade with players outside of their own guild most of the time. While this is an extreme case, I've read a fair amount of guild adverts that state their dues, and they're also pretty unreasonable given the location of the trading guild. I'll toss up on the screen the dues that I pay in each of my guilds so that you can get an idea for what is to be expected of good trading guilds. Most guilds have a system where your dues, in part, also count as tickets towards a raffle, which is a really nice and great way to encourage meeting and exceeding dues. So be sure to find out what your dues are before you go ahead and join a trading guild. See if they seem reasonable to you given the guild's location and history, and ask yourself if you'll be able to meet them. A trading guild's history is a fairly important thing to consider, although it takes a bit of effort on your part. It's good to know about the leadership of a guild, like who's running it, how much experience they have, and how long they've been in charge. Back when I was a trading noob, I experienced a guild fiasco when the management of the guild that I was in got into a huge spat and one of the officers emptied the guild bank and skedaddled with all of their money and items. Needless to say, the guild ended up disbanding for a little while before eventually reassembling and trying things again a year later. If I had used my few brain cells to realize that management had been changing like crazy, I could have expected that some issues would arise, and applied for new guilds instead. In another less extreme case, I joined a trading guild in the second best zone for trading in the game, right as the OG guildmaster quit the game. Unlucky. The guild store only lasted in that spot for another few weeks before the new GM just could not hang on to that trader anymore. So they ended up deciding to move the guild to another location, which was not what I signed up for, so I left the guild. It's also good to know the guild's history with their specific guild store location. Do they have a history of usually being in the same zone, or are they in a new zone every week? As a shopper, you may recognize that some guilds have the same guild trader location every single week. That is ideally the kind of guild that you're going to want to go for. A lot of what I mentioned earlier about understanding your market is completely useless if you're hopping from zone to zone each week, since you'll have to constantly adapt to new zones every week. You may not think that this is such a big deal, but trust me, it is. A couple of times my Vivec trading guild has ended up in Rawcaw for a week, and a lot of the guildies' sales end up shitting the bed, just because they're not used to selling their wares in Rawcaw where the market's different. If you recognize that a guild is in the same spot every week, you should apply to join it, since that's the best case scenario. Once you're in, if management looks fine and consistent, that's a great sign. Leave the drama for the RP guilds, am I right? I kid, please don't report me. And that's about all I have to say on the matter. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk. If you made it all the way to this part of the video, congrats, have a sweet roll. But nah, for real, I hope that my market ramblings have helped you consider a bunch of new concepts when it comes to finding yourself an objectively good trading guild that will also provide you with the amenities that you're looking for, such as a great spot to sell what you obtain the most from playing ESO, as well as nice quality of life experiences like raffles and giveaways and events and whatnot. If you guys have any more specific questions about trading guilds, feel free to ask away in the comments section. I do my best to respond to everyone, and I'd be happy to help you out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!